They shoved her toward the exit like garbage. A quiet woman in a faded nurse's uniform, sitting alone at the back of the ceremony, clutching a wrinkled program with trembling hands. Security didn't ask questions. Guests whispered and looked away. She didn't fight back. She never did. But when a Navy Admiral caught sight of the small, pale scar on her wrist, the kind you only get from a specific type of field tourniquet under combat conditions, his face went white. He stopped mid-stride. His voice cracked over the loudspeaker. And in less than 10 seconds, every officer on that graduation field snapped to attention like their lives depended on it. If you want to see how far a mother's silence can stretch, and how loud the truth becomes when it finally breaks, stay with me until the end. Like this video, drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and let me know how far this story travels. The sun beat down on Riverside Naval Base like it had a grudge. Rows of white folding chairs stretched across the parade ground, filled with families in pressed suits and summer dresses, all waiting for the same thing, to watch their sons and daughters become officers. The air smelled like cut grass and expensive cologne. Flags snapped in the wind. Somewhere, a brass band was warming up, all polish and precision. Emily Carter sat in the last row, alone. Her uniform wasn't military. It was pale blue scrubs, the kind you see in every hospital hallway, worn soft at the elbows and knees. The name tag pinned to her chest read Riverview General, E. Carter, R.N. Her shoes were white sneakers with scuffed toes. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, a few gray streaks catching the light. She looked exactly like what she was, a middle-aged nurse who'd worked a night shift and driven 3 hours to get here on time. Nobody looked at her twice. She didn't mind. She was used to it. Emily folded her hands in her lap and watched the field. Somewhere out there, in a sea of sharp dress uniforms and spit-shine boots, was her son, Ryan Carter, 22 years old. About to graduate as a commissioned officer in the United States Navy. She'd raised him alone since he was 6, worked double shifts, skipped meals, drove a car with 200,000 miles on it because new tires mattered more than a payment plan. And now he was here. She just wanted to see him walk across that stage. A woman in a yellow sundress sat down 2 chairs over, glanced at Emily, then stood back up and moved 3 rows forward. Emily didn't react. She pulled the program from her purse and smoothed it flat on her knee, running her thumb over Ryan's name in the printed list. Ensign Ryan J. Carter. Her chest tightened, but she didn't cry. She'd learned a long time ago that tears didn't solve anything. A security guard approached from the side, young guy with a buzz cut and a clipboard. He stopped next to her row, looked her up and down, then cleared his throat. "Ma'am, this section's reserved for family members of graduates." Emily looked up at him, calm. "I know, my son's graduating today." The guard's eyes flicked to her scrubs, then back to her face. "You got a pass?" "They told me I didn't need one. I registered online 2 weeks ago." He frowned, checked his clipboard. "What's the name?" "Carter. Emily Carter. My son is Ryan Carter." The guard scanned the list, then shook his head. "I don't see you on here. That's impossible. I got the confirmation email." "Well, it's not showing up." He tapped the clipboard like that settled it. "I'm going to need you to move to general seating." Emily's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed even. "Where's general seating?" He pointed toward a patch of grass on the far side of the field, past the last row of chairs, where a few people stood in the shade of a scraggly oak tree. No chairs, no cover, just dirt and sun. "Over there." Emily stared at him. "I drove 3 hours to be here." "I understand, ma'am, but without a pass, I registered. I did everything right." The guard's tone shifted, just a shade colder. "Ma'am, I'm trying to be respectful, but if you're not on the list, you're not sitting here. Now you can move on your own, or I can have someone escort you." Emily stood slowly. She didn't argue. She picked up her purse, folded the program, and walked toward the grass without another word. Behind her, she heard the woman in the yellow dress whisper to someone, "I think she's one of the staff or something." Emily reached the edge of the field and stopped under the oak tree. The shade was thin. The ground was uneven. She stood there with her arms crossed, watching the ceremony set up from a distance, far enough that she could barely make out faces. But she stayed, because Ryan was out there, and that was enough. On the opposite side of the parade ground, inside a staging tent behind the main platform, Ensign Ryan Carter adjusted his cover for the third time and checked his phone again. No messages. He slipped it back into his pocket and scanned the crowd through the tent flap. "She said she'd be here," he muttered. "Who?" asked the guy next to him, a stocky kid from Ohio named Matt Gruber. "My mom. She coming?" "She better be. I told her not to miss this." Matt grinned. "Dude, relax. Parents always show up late. Mine probably stopped for breakfast somewhere." Ryan didn't answer. He just kept looking. He hadn't seen his mother in 6 months. She didn't do video calls, didn't like being on camera, said she was too tired after her shifts. He'd tried to visit her twice, but both times she'd made excuses. Work, scheduling conflicts. She was always working, always tired, always somewhere else. But she promised she'd be here. Ryan pulled out his phone one more time and typed a quick message. "You here yet?" He waited. No reply. "Attention, all graduates." A voice crackled over the PA system. "Formation begins in 5 minutes. Line up by platoon." Ryan shoved his phone away and fell in with his unit. He told himself she was just running late, traffic, parking, something normal. She wouldn't miss this. Emily watched from the grass as the ceremony began. The commandant took the stage, a gray-haired man with 3 stars on his shoulder boards and a voice like gravel. He started talking about duty and sacrifice and the long tradition of service. The crowd listened in respectful silence. Emily didn't hear most of it. She was watching the rows of graduates, trying to find Ryan. All the uniforms looked the same from this distance. White caps, dark jackets, straight lines. She couldn't pick him out. Then the band started playing, and the graduates marched onto the field in formation. Emily's heart kicked hard in her chest. She stepped forward, just a little, shading her eyes against the sun. There, 3rd row, left side. Taller than the others. Same walk she'd seen 1,000 times growing up, that long stride he'd inherited from his father. Ryan. Emily felt her throat close up. She pressed her lips together and blinked hard, forcing it down. Not here, not now, just watch him. That's all you came to do. The ceremony moved on. Speeches, awards, a presentation of colors. The graduates stood at attention, perfectly still, while cameras flashed and parents waved from the crowd. Emily stayed where she was, hands folded in front of her, silent and alone under the tree. An older woman in a navy blazer walked past, gave Emily a once-over, then stopped. "Excuse me, are you with the catering service?" Emily blinked. "No, I'm here for the graduation." The woman frowned, confused. "Oh, I just thought, well, you're standing over here, so I assumed." She trailed off, then walked away without finishing. Emily turned back to the field. Her hands were shaking slightly. She pressed them flat against her sides. She'd been through worse than this, much worse, but somehow standing here in the sun, invisible and dismissed, felt heavier than she expected. The commandant's voice boomed across the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Rear Admiral Vincent Lawson, Deputy Commander of Naval Surface Forces." Applause rippled through the crowd. A tall man in dress white stepped up to the podium, his chest covered in ribbons and medals. He had the kind of face that looked like it had seen things, sharp eyes, tight jaw, the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades making hard calls. Admiral Lawson adjusted the microphone and began to speak. 12 years ago, I lost 3 men in Afghanistan. Good men. Men with families waiting for them back home. We were pinned down in a valley outside Kandahar, taking fire from 3 sides, and our medic was already down. We had no air support, no reinforcements, and we were bleeding out. The crowd went quiet. I remember thinking that was it, that we weren't making it out. And then I saw her. Emily's breath caught. No. Emily's saying, a Navy corpsman, couldn't have been more than 120 pounds soaking wet. She came running through the gunfire like it was nothing. Didn't hesitate. Didn't flinch. She dropped next to my wounded guys and went to work. I watched her pull a tourniquet so tight on a guy's leg, I thought she'd snap the bone. But it stopped the bleeding. And then she moved to the next man. And the next. She worked on them for 43 minutes under sustained enemy fire. 43 minutes. When the medevac finally arrived, she refused to get on. Said the wounded went first. Every single one of them. Admiral Lawson paused, his voice rough. I asked her name. She told me it didn't matter, and then she was gone. I spent years trying to find her, tried to get her recognized, but her records were classified, redacted, like she didn't exist. I never got to say thank you. He looked out over the crowd, his eyes distant. I'm telling you this because some of you, sitting out there today, are going to serve in places that don't make sense. You're going to be scared. You're going to wonder if it matters. And I want you to know that it does. Because somewhere out there, the people you save will remember, even if you don't. The crowd erupted in applause. Emily closed her eyes and turned away, heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She hadn't thought about Kandahar in years. She'd buried it, locked it down, told herself it was over. But it wasn't. It never was. Ryan stood in formation, listening to the Admiral's speech, and something about it made his chest feel tight. He didn't know why. He'd heard stories like this before. Heroism, sacrifice, all the things they drilled into you at the academy. But this one felt different. He glanced sideways at Matt, who was staring straight ahead, stone-faced. Then Ryan looked back toward the crowd, scanning for his mother. Still nothing. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He risked a quick glance. I'm here. I can see you. I'm so proud of you. Ryan's throat closed up. He wanted to text back, wanted to ask where she was sitting, but the ceremony was still going and he couldn't move. He slipped the phone away and stood a little straighter. She was here. That was all that mattered. The ceremony dragged on. More speeches. A long-winded address from a local congressman. Emily stopped listening. She just watched Ryan, committing every detail to memory. The way he stood. The way he held his shoulders back. The way he looked exactly like the man she used to know, before the war took him away from her. Then something happened. A man in a commander's uniform walked past the front rows, heading toward the tree line on the far side of the field. He wasn't watching where he was going. He was looking at something, someone, off to the side. His eyes landed on Emily. He stopped, stared. Then his face went white. Emily felt her stomach drop. She knew that look. She'd seen it before. The look people got when they recognized something they thought was gone. The commander took a step toward her, then another, moving faster now. He wasn't looking at her face. He was looking at her wrist, her left wrist, where a thin, pale scar ran horizontal across the inside of her forearm. Barely visible. Unless you knew what it was, a tourniquet scar, applied under fire, the kind you only got in one place. Combat. The commander stopped 10 feet away, breathing hard. His voice came out shaky. Ma'am, are you Lieutenant Carter? Emily didn't move, didn't answer. The man's face crumpled, his voice cracked. Oh my God, you are. He turned and shouted toward the platform, loud enough that people started turning their heads. Admiral Lawson, she's here! Every head on the field turned. Emily felt the ground tilt under her feet. No, not here. Not now. Not like this. Admiral Lawson, still standing at the podium, stopped mid-sentence and looked up sharply. His eyes found the commander, then followed his gaze across the field. To Emily. The admiral's face went pale. He dropped the microphone. And then he started running. A 2-star admiral. Running across a graduation ceremony. Toward a woman in hospital scrubs standing alone under a tree. The crowd went dead silent. Cameras swung around. People stood up trying to see what was happening. The band stopped playing. The graduates broke formation slightly, craning their necks. Ryan turned fully now, confused, trying to figure out what everyone was staring at. And then he saw her. Standing under the oak tree, small and still, with an admiral sprinting toward her like his life depended on it. His mother. Ryan's breath stopped. Admiral Lawson reached Emily and stopped, chest heaving, staring at her like she'd risen from the dead. His voice came out rough, barely controlled. Lieutenant Emily Carter, call sign White Angel. Emily closed her eyes. Sir, please don't. Is it true? The admiral's voice cracked. Are you her? Emily didn't answer. The commander stepped forward, his own voice shaking. Sir, I was in Kandahar. March 2014. Ambush in the Korangal Valley. She was the one who kept us alive. She ran into fire 3 times to pull wounded out. I watched her hold a torn femoral artery closed with her bare hands for 40 minutes while we waited for extract. She saved 7 men that day. 7. I was one of them. The Admiral's eyes were wet. I read the after-action report. They said she refused evacuation until every man was stable. Because they needed me more than I needed a medevac, Emily said quietly. The Admiral's jaw worked. He looked at her for a long moment, then took a step back, and came to attention, and saluted her. A 2-star admiral, saluting a woman in scrubs. The commander followed. Then another officer nearby, then another. And then, like a wave rolling across the field, every soldier, sailor, and Marine in uniform on that parade ground snapped to attention and raised their hands in salute. 300 people, silent, saluting. Ryan stood frozen, his hand halfway to his own salute, staring at his mother like he'd never seen her before. Because he hadn't, not like this. Emily's hand trembled as she returned the salute. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. She just stood there, small and still, while an entire military base honored her. The Admiral lowered his hand slowly, his voice thick. Ma'am, I need to know. Why didn't you ever come forward? Why didn't you tell anyone? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. Because I didn't do it for recognition, sir. I did it because they were dying, and I was the only one who could stop it. You saved my life, the commander said, his voice breaking. You saved all of us, and we never got to thank you. You don't owe me anything. The hell we don't. The Admiral turned toward the crowd, his voice rising. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Lieutenant Emily Carter, United States Navy Medical Corps, retired. She served 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq as a combat medic attached to Special Operations units. She has 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star, and a Navy Cross, all of which were classified because her missions were classified. She is the reason I'm standing here today. She is the reason a lot of us are still breathing. The crowd erupted. Not polite applause, not scattered clapping. A roar. People stood, they cheered, they shouted. Some of them were crying. Ryan stood in the middle of it all, his vision blurring, his chest so tight he couldn't breathe. His mother, the woman who worked night shifts at a county hospital, who drove a beat-up Honda and clipped coupons and never talked about herself. That woman was a war hero. Matt grabbed Ryan's shoulder. Dude, that's your mom? Ryan couldn't speak. He just nodded. The Admiral gestured toward Emily. Ma'am, would you please join us on the platform? Emily shook her head quickly. No, sir. I'm just here to watch my son graduate. Your son? The Admiral's eyes widened. He turned, scanning the rows of graduates. Which one? Emily pointed. Ryan Carter, 3rd row. The Admiral's face broke into a grin. He turned toward the formation and raised his voice. Ensign Carter, front and center. Ryan's legs moved before his brain caught up. He stepped out of formation, walked across the field in a daze, and stopped in front of the Admiral. Admiral Lawson looked him up and down, then clapped him on the shoulder. Son, do you have any idea who your mother is? Ryan's voice came out hoarse. I'm starting to. The Admiral smiled. She's a legend, and you better treat her like one. Ryan turned toward his mother. She was still standing under the tree, tears streaming down her face, looking at him like he was the only thing in the world that mattered. He walked toward her, slow at first, then faster, and then he stopped right in front of her, his voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? Emily reached up and touched his face, her hand shaking. Because I didn't want you to carry what I went through. I would have been proud of you. I know. Her voice cracked. But I needed you to be proud of yourself first. Ryan pulled her into his arms and held on tight, and Emily finally let herself cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears she'd been holding back all day. Real ones. The kind that came from years of silence and fear and exhaustion. The crowd watched in silence, and for the first time in a long time, Emily Carter wasn't invisible. The ceremony resumed, but nobody was paying attention to the speeches anymore. Everyone was whispering, looking at Emily, trying to piece together what they'd just witnessed. Camera phones were out. People were recording. Within minutes, the video would be online, spreading fast. Ryan stayed next to his mother, his arm around her shoulders, refusing to leave her side. The Admiral had offered her a seat on the platform, but she'd refused again. She wanted to stay in the background. That was who she was. But the background wasn't where she belonged anymore. A woman in a red dress approached, one of the base administrators, her face pale. "Ma'am, I am so sorry. There was a mistake with the seating arrangements. If I'd known—" "It's fine," Emily said quietly. "It's not fine. We should have—" "It doesn't matter." The woman looked like she wanted to say more, but the Admiral waved her off. She said, "It's fine. Let it go." The security guard who'd moved Emily earlier stood off to the side, staring at the ground, his face red. He didn't come over, didn't apologize, just stood there looking like he wanted to disappear. Emily didn't even glance at him. She wasn't interested in apologies. She never had been. The ceremony finally ended. Graduates tossed their caps into the air. Families rushed onto the field, hugging and crying and taking pictures. Ryan stayed close to his mother, his hand on her shoulder, like he was afraid she'd vanish if he let go. Matt jogged over, grinning. "Mrs. Carter, that was insane." Emily smiled faintly. "I didn't mean for it to turn into a thing." "Are you kidding? That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. My mom just brought a casserole." Ryan shot him a look. "Dude." "What?" "It's true." The Admiral approached again, this time with a folder in his hand. He stopped in front of Emily and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Your service record. Unredacted. I pulled some strings. It's yours now. You earned it." Emily opened the folder and stared at the pages inside. Commendations. Mission reports. Names of men she'd saved. Dates she'd tried to forget. Her hands shook. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." The Admiral's voice was firm. "But I want you to know that what you did mattered. It still matters, and it always will." Emily closed the folder and held it against her chest. "Thank you, sir." The Admiral saluted her one more time, then walked away. Ryan looked down at his mother, his eyes red. "Mom, I had no idea." "I know. Why didn't you ever talk about it?" Emily was quiet for a long moment, then she looked up at him, her voice steady. "Because I wanted you to have a normal life. I didn't want you growing up in the shadow of what I did. I wanted you to be your own person." "I am my own person. But I'm also your son, and I should have known." "You know now." Ryan pulled her close again, and Emily let herself lean into him, just for a second. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen, a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's urgent." "Captain Reeves, JSOC." Emily's stomach dropped. She stared at the message, her pulse quickening. JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. The people who ran the missions nobody talked about. The people she hadn't heard from in over a decade. Ryan noticed the change in her expression. "Mom, what's wrong?" Emily slipped the phone back into her pocket and forced a smile. "Nothing, just work." But her hands were shaking again, and this time it wasn't from emotion. Across the field, a black SUV pulled up to the edge of the parade ground. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the crowd. One of them locked eyes with Emily and started walking toward her. Ryan saw them too. "Who are they?" Emily didn't answer, because she already knew. The man in the suit moved through the crowd like he owned it, eyes locked on Emily, not bothering to excuse himself as he cut between families taking photos. He was maybe 40, clean-shaven, with the kind of posture that screamed federal agent or worse. His partner stayed by the SUV, hand resting casually near his hip. Ryan stepped forward, putting himself between the man and his mother. "Can I help you?" The man didn't even look at him. "Ma'am, I need a word." Emily's jaw tightened. "I'm with my son." "I understand. This won't take long." He pulled out a slim leather wallet and flipped it open just long enough for Emily to see the ID inside. Defense Intelligence Agency. "Captain Reeves sent me." Ryan's hand moved to Emily's elbow. "Mom, Who's Captain Reeves? Emily didn't answer. She was staring at the agent, her face unreadable. Then she turned to Ryan and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Give me 5 minutes. No way. I'm coming with you. Ryan, I'm not leaving you alone with these guys. The agent finally looked at Ryan, his expression flat. Ensign, this is a classified matter. You don't have clearance. I don't care. Emily put her hand on Ryan's chest, her voice low. It's okay. I'll be right back. Stay here. Mom, please. Ryan hesitated, then stepped back, his jaw tight. Emily squeezed his arm once, then followed the agent toward the SUV. The crowd parted around them, people still murmuring, still recording on their phones. Admiral Lawson watched from the platform, his expression concerned, but he didn't intervene. Emily reached the vehicle and stopped. The second agent opened the rear door without a word. She climbed in. The door shut behind her. Inside, the SUV was dark, windows tinted almost black. A woman sat in the back seat, late 50s, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing a navy blazer with no insignia. She didn't smile. Lieutenant Carter? Emily's voice was cold. I'm retired. Not according to your contract. My contract expired 12 years ago. The woman pulled a tablet from the seat pocket and tapped the screen. Your service agreement included a recall clause, inactive reserve status. You signed it when you took the JSOC assignment. Emily's hands curled into fists. That was for wartime emergencies. This qualifies. I'm not going back. The woman looked up, her eyes hard. You don't have a choice. Emily stared at her, heart pounding. What happened? The woman tapped the screen again and turned it toward Emily. A photo appeared. Grainy satellite image. A compound in the desert, surrounded by mountains. Emily recognized it immediately. Her stomach turned to ice. That's the Korengal. Not anymore. Intel picked up chatter 3 days ago. Someone's been asking questions about the March 2014 operation. Specifically about the medic who saved a special forces team under fire. Your name came up. Emily's breath stopped. How? We don't know. But whoever's digging knows enough to be dangerous. They've been tracking down survivors from that mission. 2 of them are already dead. The words hit like a punch. Emily's vision blurred for a second. Who? Sergeant Miles Booker, found in his apartment in Atlanta last week, staged to look like a suicide. And Corporal Daniel Hayes, car accident in Oregon 2 days ago, brake line cut. Emily closed her eyes. She could see their faces. Booker, big guy with a thick Georgia accent, always making jokes to keep morale up. Hayes, quiet kid from Portland, barely 21 when she pulled him out of that firefight. Both dead. The woman's voice didn't soften. There were 9 men on that mission, including you. 7 survived. Now it's 5. Whoever's doing this is working through the list. Emily's voice came out hoarse. Why? That's what we need to find out, and we need you to help us. I can't. I have a life. I have a son. Your son just graduated into active duty. He's Navy now, which means he's a potential target too. Emily's head snapped up. Don't you dare! I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the reality. If someone's hunting down everyone connected to that operation, your son is leverage. They'll use him to get to you. Emily's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her knees. What do you want from me? We're pulling the survivors into protective custody, discreetly. We need you to come in, give a debrief, help us figure out what we're missing. 3 days, maybe 4. And if I say no? The woman leaned back, her expression unreadable. Then you're on your own, and so is your son. Emily stared at her, jaw tight, hating every word out of this woman's mouth. But she wasn't wrong. If someone was coming after the team, Ryan was exposed. And Emily couldn't protect him if she didn't know what she was up against. She exhaled slowly. 3 days. That's it. The woman nodded. We leave tonight. Pack light. Tell your son you're being called in for a medical consult. Nothing more. He's not stupid. He'll ask questions. Then lie. Emily's eyes flashed. I don't lie to my son. Then you better get creative. The woman handed her a business card. Plain white, no name, just a phone number. Call this when you're ready. We'll send a car. Emily took the card and shoved it into her pocket. She opened the door and stepped out into the sunlight, her legs unsteady. The agent closed the door behind her. The SUV pulled away without another word, disappearing into the flow of traffic, leaving the base. Ryan was waiting exactly where she'd left him, arms crossed, face tight with worry. What the hell was that? Emily forced herself to breathe. Work thing. Bullshit. Ryan, don't! You just got saluted by an entire base and now DIA shows up? What's going on? Emily looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the fear in his eyes. Not fear of danger, fear that she was leaving, again. She reached up and put her hand on his cheek. I can't explain right now, but I need you to trust me. Mom, if you're in trouble, I'm not. I just have to take care of something. A few days, that's all. Ryan's voice cracked. You're leaving. Not because I want to. Then don't. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him everything, wanted to explain, but the woman's words were still ringing in her head. Your son is leverage. So she lied. It's a consult, medical thing. They need me to look at some records. I'll be back before you ship out. Ryan stared at her, and she could see him trying to decide whether to believe her. Then his shoulders sagged. You promise? I promise. He pulled her into a hug, and Emily held on tight, memorizing the feel of it, because she didn't know if she'd get another chance. Emily drove home in silence, hands gripping the wheel so hard her knuckles went white. The highway stretched out in front of her, flat and gray, and her mind kept circling back to the same names. Booker, Hayes, dead, and 5 more still out there, including her. She pulled into the driveway of her small rental house on the edge of Riverside and sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the peeling paint on the front door. She'd lived here for 8 years, never bothered to fix it up, never planned to stay long enough for it to matter. Inside, the house was quiet. She dropped her keys on the counter and stood in the kitchen, trying to think. 3 days, maybe 4. She needed to pack, needed to call the hospital and tell them she wouldn't be in, needed to figure out what the hell she was going to tell Ryan when he called later. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Car arrives at 2100. Be ready. Emily deleted the message and set the phone down. She walked into her bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet, the same one she'd used overseas. It still smelled faintly like desert dust. She packed fast. 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, a small first aid kit, and then she reached under the bed and pulled out a lockbox. She punched in the code and opened it. Inside was a Sig Sauer P226 military issue, along with 3 magazines and a cleaning kit. She hadn't touched it in 12 years, hadn't wanted to. But old habits didn't die, they just waited. Emily checked the chamber, loaded a magazine, and tucked the weapon into the bottom of the bag. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and put her head in her hands. She didn't cry, she was too tired for that. She just sat there, alone, and waited for the car to come. At 2100 hours, headlights swept across the front window. Emily grabbed her bag, locked the door behind her, and walked out to meet the black sedan idling in the driveway. Different car, same kind of driver. Young guy, military haircut, didn't say a word as she climbed into the back seat. They drove for 2 hours, heading north on empty roads, no music, no conversation. Emily watched the landscape change from flat farmland to dense forest, then to rolling hills dotted with communications towers. Finally, the car turned onto an unmarked access road and stopped at a chain-link gate topped with razor wire. A guard stepped out of a booth, checked the driver's ID, and waved them through. They pulled up to a low concrete building that looked like an old Cold War bunker. No signs, no windows. Just a single steel door with a keypad lock. The driver got out and opened Emily's door. They're waiting inside. Emily slung her bag over her shoulder and walked toward the entrance. The door buzzed open before she reached it. Inside was a long hallway, fluorescent lights humming overhead, linoleum floors scuffed and worn. She followed the driver to a conference room at the end of the hall. The woman from the SUV was already there, along with 2 men Emily didn't recognize. One was military, Marine Corps by the look of his uniform, mid-40s, with a scar running down the side of his neck. The other was older, civilian clothes, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of guy who looked like he spent his whole life behind a desk. The woman gestured to a chair. "Sit." Emily sat. The driver left and closed the door behind him. The woman slid a folder across the table. "These are the files on Booker and Hayes, autopsy reports, crime scene photos. Read them." Emily opened the folder. The first page was Booker. Gunshot wound to the head, staged to look self-inflicted, but the angle was wrong. The second page was Hayes. Blunt force trauma, followed by the crash. Brake lines severed cleanly. Professional job. Emily's hands tightened on the edges of the paper. "Who did this?" The Marine spoke up, his voice low and rough. "We don't know, but we've got a theory." He pulled out another file and opened it. Inside was a photo of a man, mid-30s, dark hair, cold eyes. "This is Nikolai Volkov, former Russian intelligence. Freelance contractor now. Specializes in targeted killings. He was spotted in Atlanta 3 days before Booker died." Emily stared at the photo. "Why would he care about us?" The man in glasses leaned forward. "Because 12 years ago, your team killed someone he was protecting." Emily's stomach dropped. "Who?" The man tapped the table. "You remember the compound? The one you were sent to extract intel from?" "Of course." "The target wasn't just intel. It was a person, a high-value detainee being held by an insurgent cell. Your team went in to pull him out." Emily shook her head. "We didn't pull anyone out. The compound was hit before we got there. Everyone inside was already dead." "Not everyone." The man pushed another photo across the table. A young man, Middle Eastern, maybe 25, with a clean-shaven face and Western clothes. "This is Farid Basara, son of a Saudi oil minister. He was being held for ransom by the insurgents. Your team was sent in to extract him alive." Emily's pulse was pounding. "I never saw him." "Because he was executed 10 minutes before you arrived, shot in the head. We think it was done by the insurgents when they realized the compound was compromised. But Volkov doesn't see it that way. He was hired to protect Basara. When the kid died, Volkov's reputation took a hit. He blames your team." Emily's voice was tight. "That's insane. We didn't kill him." "Doesn't matter. Volkov's a professional. He doesn't care about the truth. He cares about settling accounts." The woman's voice cut in, sharp. "And now he's coming for the rest of you. We've got 3 survivors in protective custody already. You're number 4. There's one more still out there." Emily looked up. "Who?" The Marine's jaw tightened. "Captain Marcus Reeves." Emily's breath caught. "He's the one who sent the message. He's also the one who led the mission. If Volkov's going after anyone, it's him." "Where is he?" The woman hesitated. "We don't know. He went dark 2 days ago. Didn't check in. Didn't respond to recalls. We think he's trying to handle this on his own." Emily stood up, her voice hard. "Then we need to find him before Volkov does." The Marine shook his head. "That's not your job." "Like hell it's not. Reeves saved my life. I'm not leaving him out there alone." The woman's eyes narrowed. "You're a medic, not an operator. You stay here. We'll handle Reeves." Emily leaned forward, her voice low and dangerous. "I didn't spend 3 tours patching up bullet holes just to sit in a bunker while someone hunts down my team. You want my help? Fine. But I'm going after Reeves, with or without you." The room went silent. The Marine studied her for a long moment, then looked at the woman. "She's got a point." The woman's jaw tightened. "This is a mistake." "Maybe, but she's the only one who knows Reeves well enough to predict where he'd go." The woman exhaled sharply, then pulled out her phone and made a call. She spoke quietly for a minute, then hung up. "You've got 12 hours. If you're not back by then, we're pulling you out." Emily grabbed her bag. "Where was he last seen?" The Marine pulled up a map on a tablet. "Baltimore, Warehouse District. We tracked his phone to this location, then it went dead." Emily memorized the address. "I need a car." "You'll have a team." "No, just me." "That's not protocol." Emily's eyes were cold. If Reeves sees a team coming, he'll run. He trusts me. Let me go alone. The woman and the Marine exchanged a look. Then the woman nodded. Fine, but you wear a tracker, and if things go south, you call for backup immediately. Emily didn't argue. She just turned and walked out. The drive to Baltimore took 4 hours. Emily pushed the sedan hard, weaving through late-night traffic, her mind racing. Reeves was smart, trained. He wouldn't go down easy. But if Volkov had already found him, she couldn't think about that. The warehouse district was a mess of crumbling brick buildings and rusted chain-link fences. Emily parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, moving quietly, her hand resting on the cig tucked into her waistband. The address led her to an old textile factory, windows shattered, walls covered in graffiti. She slipped through a gap in the fence and moved along the side of the building, staying low. A light flickered inside. 2nd floor. Emily found a side entrance, door hanging off its hinges, and stepped inside. The air smelled like mold and rust. She moved through the shadows, every sense on high alert. Stairs. She took them slowly, testing each step before putting her weight down. At the top, she found a hallway. The light was coming from a room at the end. Emily pulled the cig and moved forward. She reached the doorway and looked inside. Reeves was there, sitting on the floor back against the wall, blood soaking through his shirt. His gun was on the ground next to him, empty magazine ejected. Emily's heart stopped. Marcus? His head lifted slowly. His face was pale, covered in sweat. Emily? She rushed forward and dropped to her knees beside him, pulling open his shirt. Gunshot wound, upper abdomen, clean entry, no exit. The bleeding was bad. Who did this? Reeves' voice was weak. Volkov, he was waiting. I got 2 shots off. Don't know if I hit him. Emily pulled her med kit from her bag and started working. Pressure bandage, IV line. Her hands moved on autopilot, fast and steady. How long ago? 20 minutes, maybe less. Emily's pulse spiked. Volkov could still be here. She grabbed her phone and hit the emergency line. I need an immediate evac. Warehouse District, Baltimore. Officer down. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. The voice on the other end was calm. 12 minutes out. Make it 6. She hung up and looked at Reeves. His eyes were starting to glaze. Stay with me, Marcus. You hear me? Stay with me. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. You shouldn't have come. Shut up. He's still here, Emily. He's watching. Emily froze. What? A voice came from the doorway behind her, accented, smooth. She is right, Captain. You should shut up. Emily spun, gun up. A man stood in the shadows, tall, dark coat, cold eyes. Volkov. He raised his own weapon, a suppressed pistol, aimed directly at Emily's chest, and smiled. Emily didn't move. Her cig was already up, finger on the trigger, but Volkov had the angle. He was 5 feet away, weapon steady, suppressor aimed at her center mass. If she fired, he fired, and she'd be dead before Reeves hit the floor. Volkov's smile didn't reach his eyes. Lower the gun, Lieutenant. Emily's voice was flat. You first. I don't think so. He tilted his head slightly. You are fast. I saw your records, but not fast enough. Behind her, Reeves coughed wetly, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. Emily could hear his breathing getting shallow. He had maybe 10 minutes before he went into shock. Maybe less. She didn't lower the gun. You kill me, backup arrives in 6 minutes. You won't make it out. I have made it out of worse. Volkov's accent was thick, Russian, but his English was perfect. You, however, will be dead. So will your captain. Is that acceptable to you? Emily's jaw tightened. What do you want? Answers. About what? Farid Basara. Emily's pulse spiked. He was already dead when we got there. I know. Volkov's eyes were cold. I want to know who gave the order. Emily blinked. What order? To kill him. Volkov stepped forward, his gun never wavering. You think the insurgents executed him? No, someone in your chain of command wanted him dead, and your team was sent in to make sure it happened. Emily's mind was racing. That's not true. We were there to extract him. Then why did your team burn the entire compound? Why were there no survivors? Why was every piece of evidence destroyed? We were under fire. We had no choice. Volkov's voice dropped, ice cold. You are lying. I'm not. Then your captain is. Volkov shifted his aim toward Reeves. Perhaps I should ask him. He doesn't know anything. Everyone knows something. Emily's finger tightened on the trigger. You pull that trigger, I pull mine. We both die here. Volkov smiled again. You think I care? I think you're too smart to throw your life away on a revenge fantasy. This is not revenge. This is justice. Justice for who? A kid who got killed by terrorists? Volkov's eyes flashed. A kid who was murdered because he knew too much. Because someone in your government wanted him silenced, and your team was the weapon they used. Emily's breath caught. She wanted to deny it, wanted to call him crazy, but something in his voice made her hesitate, because she'd been on enough Black Ops missions to know that the truth was never clean. And orders from above didn't always make sense. Reeves coughed again, harder this time. His hand moved weakly toward his side. Emily risked a glance down and saw what he was reaching for. A small recording device, clipped to his belt, red light blinking. He'd been recording the whole time. Volkov saw it too. His expression darkened. What is that? Reeves' voice was barely a whisper. Insurance. Volkov's gun swung back toward him. Turn it off. Can't. Already uploaded. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Reeves was bluffing. He had to be. But Volkov didn't know that. Volkov's jaw tightened. Where? Reeves smiled, blood on his teeth. Everywhere. Volkov took a step forward and Emily moved without thinking. She fired. The shot went wide, punching through the wall next to Volkov's head. He dove sideways, returning fire, suppressor coughing twice. Emily threw herself over Reeves, covering him with her body as rounds tore through the air above them. She rolled, came up firing, 3 shots in rapid succession. Volkov was already gone, disappearing through the doorway into the hall. Emily scrambled to her feet and moved to the door, weapon up, breathing hard. The hallway was empty. No movement, no sound. She pulled back and dropped next to Reeves, hands already moving to check his wounds. The IV line had torn loose. Blood was soaking through the bandage faster now. Emily, his voice was fading. He's right. Shut up. Save your strength. The mission, it wasn't what they told us. Emily pressed down on the wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Marcus, stop talking. Basara knew something about oil contracts, about bribes. Someone wanted him gone. I don't care, you're bleeding out. Reeves grabbed her wrist, his grip weak. The recording, it's real. I've been investigating for 2 years. I know who gave the order. Emily stared at him. Who? Senator Blake Harrington. He was on the Armed Services Committee. Basar's father was about to expose him for taking kickbacks. Harrington couldn't let that happen. Emily's stomach turned. You're saying we were sent in to cover up a murder? Yes. And you have proof. On the drive, hidden in my car. If I don't make it, you're making it. Reeves' eyes were starting to glaze. Promise me. You'll finish this. I promise. Now shut up and let me work. She grabbed her phone and hit redial. The same voice answered. Status? Suspect engaged. Officer critical. Where's my evac? 4 minutes out. Make it 2. Emily hung up and went back to work, hands moving fast, trying to keep Reeves stable. His pulse was thready, blood pressure dropping. She needed a hospital. She needed equipment. She needed things she didn't have. A sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Volkov was coming back. Emily grabbed her gun and moved to the door, staying low. She could see his shadow on the wall, creeping closer. He wasn't rushing, wasn't making mistakes. He knew she was armed, knew she was dangerous. But he also knew she wasn't leaving Reeves. Emily's mind raced. She had maybe 8 rounds left, no backup, no cover, and a dying man on the floor behind her. The footsteps stopped. Volkov's voice echoed down the hall. You cannot win this, Lieutenant. Even if you kill me, the truth will not change. Your government is corrupt. Your mission was a lie, and you were the tool they used. Emily's voice was steady. If that's true, then help me prove it. Silence. Then Volkov laughed. low and bitter. You think I trust you. I think you want the same thing I do, justice. Justice is dead. Then let's bring it back. Another pause, longer this time. Then Volkov stepped into view, weapon lowered, his face unreadable. You are either very brave or very stupid. Emily kept her gun up. Little of both. He studied her for a long moment, then holstered his weapon. If I help you, the people who ordered Basara's death will come for both of us. Let them. Volkov's eyes narrowed. You are willing to die for this? I'm willing to stop running. He looked past her at Reeves, then back at Emily. Your captain will not survive the night without medical attention. I know. And you are still willing to make this deal? Emily lowered her gun slightly. If you help me get him out of here alive, I'll help you take down Harrington. You have my word. Volkov stared at her, weighing the offer. Then he nodded once. Move him. Now. Emily holstered her weapon and grabbed Reeves under the arms. Volkov took his legs. Together, they carried him down the stairs, moving fast but careful. Reeves was unconscious now, his breathing shallow and ragged. They reached the ground floor just as headlights swept across the broken windows. A black SUV skidded to a stop outside, doors flying open. Two agents jumped out, weapons drawn. Emily shouted, "Friendly! Don't shoot!" The agents saw her, saw Reeves, and immediately moved to help. They loaded him into the back of the SUV, one of them starting an IV, while the other radioed for a trauma team. Emily turned back toward Volkov, but he was already gone, disappeared into the shadows like he'd never been there. The agent grabbed her arm. We need to go. Now. Emily climbed into the SUV, and they tore out of the warehouse district, sirens wailing. She sat in the back next to Reeves, watching the agent work on him, hands steady, professional. But she could see the look in his eyes, the one that said he'd seen this before, the one that said it didn't always end well. Is he going to make it? The agent didn't look up. I don't know. Emily closed her eyes and leaned back against the seat, her hands still shaking from adrenaline. She could still see Volkov's face, still hear his voice. Your mission was a lie. If he was telling the truth, then everything she'd believed about that day in Kandahar was wrong. And if Reeves was telling the truth about Harrington, then someone very powerful had a very good reason to make sure none of them ever talked. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. The drive is in the glove box. Silver Camry, parking garage on West Pratt, level 3. You have 1 hour before they find it. Emily stared at the message, her pulse quickening. Volkov. He was giving her the evidence. She looked at the agent. I need you to take me to West Pratt. Negative. We're going to the hospital. I need to go now. Ma'am, you're in protective custody. You're not going anywhere without clearance. Emily's voice hardened. Then get me clearance. The agent met her eyes, saw something there that made him hesitate, then pulled out his radio. Base, this is Transport 1. Subject is requesting detour to West Pratt. Parking garage, level 3. Static crackled. Then the woman's voice came through, sharp and annoyed. Denied. Bring her in. Emily grabbed the radio. This is Carter. I have intel on the suspect. Time sensitive. If we don't move now, we lose it. A long pause. Then, you have 30 minutes. After that, you're coming in whether you like it or not. The SUV changed course, heading toward downtown Baltimore. Emily watched the city blur past, her mind racing. If the evidence was real, if Harrington really had ordered the hit, then this was bigger than Volkov, bigger than revenge. This was a cover-up that went all the way to the top. The SUV pulled into the parking garage and climbed to level 3. Emily spotted the Camry immediately, parked in the corner, covered in dust. She jumped out and moved toward it, the agent right behind her. The doors were unlocked. Emily opened the glove box and found a small USB drive wrapped in plastic. She pulled it out and held it up to the light. The agent's radio crackled. Transport 1, we've got movement on the lower levels. Multiple vehicles, armed personnel. Emily's stomach dropped. How many? At least 6. They're coming up. The agent grabbed her arm. We need to go. Now. Emily shoved the drive into her pocket and ran back to the SUV. They peeled out, tires screaming, just as black sedans roared up the ramp behind them. Gunfire erupted, rounds pinging off the back of the vehicle. The agent floored it, weaving through the garage, taking corners too fast, barely missing concrete pillars. Emily braced herself against the seat, her heart pounding. They hit the exit ramp and burst out onto the street, the sedans right behind them. The agent grabbed the radio. "We are under fire! Repeat, under fire! Requesting immediate backup!" More gunfire. The rear window exploded, glass spraying everywhere. Emily ducked, covering her head. The agent swerved hard, cutting through an intersection, nearly clipping a taxi. The sedans followed, relentless. Then, from the cross street, 2 more SUVs appeared, black and unmarked, cutting off the sedans. Federal agents poured out, weapons drawn, shouting commands. The sedans screeched to a halt. Doors opened. Men in tactical gear jumped out, but they were surrounded, outgunned. Emily's driver didn't stop. He kept going, racing through the city, putting distance between them and the firefight. Emily sat up slowly, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Who were they? I don't know, but they wanted you dead. Emily pulled out the USB drive and stared at it. Whatever was on this, it was worth killing for. The agent's radio crackled again. Transport 1, proceed to secondary safe house. Do not return to base. Repeat, do not return to base. The agent's jaw tightened. He changed course, heading east, away from the city. Emily's phone buzzed again. Another message. They know you have the drive. They will come for you. Trust no one. Emily deleted the message and looked out the window. The city was disappearing behind them, replaced by dark highways and empty fields. She thought about Ryan, about the graduation, about the look on his face when she'd promised to come back. She thought about Reeves, bleeding out in the back of another SUV, fighting for his life because he'd tried to do the right thing. And she thought about Volkov, a killer with a grudge, who'd somehow become the only person she could trust. The SUV pulled off the highway and onto a narrow dirt road, surrounded by trees. They drove for another 10 minutes, then stopped in front of a small cabin, isolated and dark. The agent got out and scanned the area. Clear. Let's go. Emily followed him inside. The cabin was bare. 1 room, a table, 2 chairs, no windows. The agent locked the door behind them and turned to face her. You've got 1 hour to tell me what's on that drive. After that, my orders are to bring you in. Emily sat down and pulled out the USB drive. You have a laptop? He handed her one from his bag. Emily plugged in the drive and waited for it to load. A folder appeared. Inside were dozens of files. Emails, bank records, audio recordings, and a video file labeled Basara_final_confession. Emily's hands trembled as she clicked it. The video started. Fareed Basara's face filled the screen, young and scared, sitting in a dark room. His voice was shaky. My name is Fareed Basara. If you are watching this, I am already dead. I am recording this because I need the world to know the truth. Senator Blake Harrington accepted bribes from my father's company in exchange for military contracts in the Middle East. When I discovered the evidence, I tried to go to the authorities, but Harrington found out. He sent people to kill me. They kidnapped me and brought me to Afghanistan. They are going to make it look like the insurgents did it. But it was him. It was always him. Di Platan. The video cut off. Emily sat back, her chest tight. This was it. Proof. Real proof. The agent stared at the screen, his face pale. If this gets out, it has to. You don't understand. Harrington has connections. Military, intelligence. If you go public with this, you'll be marked for life. I'm already marked. The agent's radio crackled. A different voice this time. Urgent. All units be advised. Subject Emily Carter is now considered a hostile asset. Apprehend on sight. Use of lethal force is authorized. Emily's blood went cold. The agent looked at her, his hand moving toward his weapon. Don't, Emily said quietly. I have my orders. Your orders are wrong. His hand hesitated on the grip. I can't let you leave. Emily stood slowly, her voice steady. Yes, you can. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the agent's hand dropped. You've got a 5-minute head start. After that, I'm calling it in. Emily grabbed the laptop and ran. She burst out of the cabin and into the trees, moving fast, her lungs burning. Behind her, she heard the agent shouting into his radio, but she didn't stop. She ran until the cabin disappeared behind her, until the only sound was her own breathing and the crunch of leaves under her feet. Then her phone rang. She pulled it out, gasping for air. Unknown number. She answered. Ryan's voice came through, terrified and breathless. "Mom, they took me." Emily's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed a tree to steady herself. The phone pressed so hard against her ear it hurt. "Ryan, where are you?" His voice was shaking. "I don't know. They grabbed me outside the base, put a bag over my head. Mom, I—" The line cut to static, then a new voice came through. Male, calm, the kind of calm that made Emily's skin crawl. "Lieutenant Carter, you have something that belongs to us." Emily's hand tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is your son. He's unharmed, for now. If you touch him, you'll what? You're alone. You're wanted by your own government, and you're holding evidence that a lot of powerful people would prefer stayed buried." The voice paused. "But I'm a reasonable man. Give us the drive and your son goes home. Simple exchange." Emily's mind raced. She was standing in the middle of nowhere, no backup, no plan, and they had Ryan. But if she gave up the drive, Basara's murder stayed covered up. Harrington walked free, and she'd have nothing to keep them from killing both her and Ryan the second the exchange was done. "How do I know he's alive?" "You don't. But you also don't have a choice. Let me talk to him again." Static. Then Ryan's voice, closer this time, urgent. "Mom, don't do it. Whatever they want, don't—" A dull thud. Ryan's voice cut off mid-sentence. Emily's vision went red. "I swear, if you hurt him, he's fine, but my patience isn't infinite. You have 2 hours. I'll send you the location. Come alone. Bring the drive. If I see anyone else, your son dies." The line went dead. Emily stood there, chest heaving, staring at the phone. Then she forced herself to breathe, to think. They wanted the drive, they had Ryan, but they didn't know she'd already copied the files to the laptop, and they didn't know about Volkov. She pulled up her recent texts and found the last message from the unknown number. She typed fast. "They have my son. I need your help." She waited, watching the screen. 30 seconds, a minute, then a reply. "Where?" Emily exhaled. "Don't know yet. They're sending coordinates. Can you track them?" "Yes, send when you receive." Emily shoved the phone in her pocket and started moving, pushing through the trees, heading east toward the main road. She needed a car, needed to get mobile before the extraction team caught up. She hit the road and spotted headlights in the distance. A pickup truck, old and battered, coming slow. Emily stepped into the middle of the road and raised her hands. The truck slowed, then stopped. The driver leaned out, a woman in her 60s, suspicious. "You okay?" Emily forced a smile. "My car broke down a few miles back. Can you give me a ride to the nearest town?" The woman hesitated, looking Emily up and down. Torn jacket, dirt on her face. But something in Emily's eyes must have convinced her because she nodded. "Get in." Emily climbed into the passenger seat, and the truck started moving again. The woman didn't ask questions, just drove, country music playing low on the radio. Emily kept her phone in her hand, watching for the coordinates. They came through 10 minutes later, a pin dropped on a map. Abandoned industrial park outside Richmond, 2 hours south. Emily forwarded the location to Volkov, then looked at the woman. "I need to borrow your truck." The woman's hands tightened on the wheel. "Excuse me?" "I'll bring it back, I promise, but I need it now." "Lady, I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, but—" Emily pulled out $500 in cash, everything she had in her wallet, and put it on the dashboard. "Please." The woman stared at the money, then at Emily. Then she pulled over to the side of the road and got out. "You better bring it back in one piece." "I will." Emily slid into the driver's seat and pulled back onto the road, pressing the gas pedal down hard. The truck rattled and shook, but it moved. She drove south, pushing 70 on roads meant for 50, her mind running through scenarios. They'd picked an industrial park, open space, easy to see her coming, hard to approach without being spotted. They'd have men positioned, rifles, clear lines of sight. They expected her to walk in and hand over the drive. They were going to be disappointed. Her phone buzzed. Text from Volkov. I have eyes on the location. 3 vehicles, at least 8 men. Your son is in the center building, 2nd floor. Emily's heart slammed. Can you get him out? Not without a distraction. Emily's jaw tightened. I'll give you one. She drove faster, the truck groaning in protest. The landscape shifted from forest to flat farmland, then to scattered warehouses and crumbling factories. She could see the industrial park ahead, a cluster of gray buildings surrounded by chain-link fences and empty lots. She pulled off the main road a quarter-mile out and parked behind an old grain silo. She grabbed the laptop, shoved it into her jacket, and stepped out into the cold night air. Her phone buzzed again. Volkov. They are watching the south entrance. I am positioned on the east side. When you move, I move. Emily typed back. Give me 3 minutes. She circled around the perimeter, staying low, moving through the shadows. The industrial park was massive, rows of old factories with shattered windows and rusted machinery. She could see the center building, a 3-story concrete structure with a flat roof. Lights on the 2nd floor. Movement behind the glass. Ryan was in there. Emily pulled out her cig and checked the magazine. 6 rounds left. Not enough. But it would have to be. She moved closer, using the abandoned buildings for cover, until she was 50 yards from the entrance. 2 men stood outside, both armed with automatic rifles, scanning the area. Emily took a breath, then stepped out into the open. The men saw her immediately. Guns came up. One of them shouted into a radio. Emily raised her hands, the laptop visible under her arm. I'm here. Let's do this. The door to the building opened and a man stepped out. Tall, late 40s, expensive suit under a tactical vest. He looked like a consultant or a lawyer, the kind of guy who gave orders from a distance. He smiled. Lieutenant Carter, right on time. Emily's voice was cold. Where's my son? Inside. Safe. For now. He gestured toward the building. The drive? Emily pulled it out and held it up. Let me see him first. The man pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. A video feed appeared. Ryan, sitting in a chair, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood on his lip but otherwise intact. Emily's chest tightened. Let him go. The drive first. We do this at the same time. The man sighed, like this was all terribly inconvenient. You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. He raised an eyebrow. How do you figure? Emily nodded toward the east side of the compound. Because you've got a sniper problem. The man's smile faded. He turned, and one of his men dropped, blood spraying from his throat before the sound of the shot even registered. Chaos erupted. The second guard dove for cover, shouting into his radio. The man in the suit pulled a pistol and fired at Emily, but she was already moving, sprinting toward the building as rounds tore up the pavement behind her. She hit the door hard, shoulder first, and it gave way. Inside was a long hallway, dimly lit, concrete floors covered in dust and broken glass. She could hear shouting above her, footsteps pounding down the stairs. Emily moved fast, heading for the stairwell. A man appeared at the top, rifle raised. She fired twice, center mass, and he went down hard. She took the stairs 2 at a time, breathing hard, adrenaline screaming through her veins. 2nd floor. She cleared the corner and saw another hallway, doors on both sides. One of them was open, light spilling out. Emily moved toward it, weapon up. She could hear voices inside, shouting, a struggle. She reached the doorway and looked in. Ryan was on his feet, hands still bound, but he'd gotten loose enough to fight. He was grappling with a guard, trying to get the man's rifle away from him. Another guard was moving toward them, pistol drawn. Emily fired. The second guard dropped. Ryan yanked the rifle free and slammed the stock into the first guard's face, sending him sprawling. Ryan spun, wild-eyed, then saw his mother. Mom! Move! Emily grabbed his arm and pulled him into the hallway. More footsteps. Coming up the stairs. She shoved Ryan toward the opposite end of the hall. Go! Fire exit! Ryan ran. Emily turned and fired twice down the stairwell, forcing the men back. Then she followed Ryan, reloading as she moved. They hit the fire exit and burst out onto a metal landing. Below was a 20-foot drop to the pavement. Ryan looked at her, breathing hard. Now what? Emily looked down. A dumpster sat directly below them. Jump. Are you serious? Do it! Ryan climbed over the railing and dropped, landing hard in the dumpster with a crash. Emily followed, hitting the trash bags and rolling to absorb the impact. She scrambled out, pulled Ryan to his feet, and they ran. Gunfire erupted behind them. Rounds pinged off the dumpster, the pavement, the walls around them. Emily shoved Ryan ahead of her, using her body as a shield. They reached the edge of the compound and dove behind a stack of old crates. Emily pulled out her phone and typed fast. "We're out. East side. Need extract now." Volkov's reply was instant. 30 seconds. Emily looked at Ryan. His face was pale, covered in sweat, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "You okay?" "I've been better." "Can you run?" "Yeah." "Then let's go." They broke from cover and sprinted toward the perimeter fence. Behind them, the men were regrouping, shouting commands, coordinating. Emily could see the headlights of the trucks starting up, moving to cut them off. Then a black sedan appeared from the east, skidding to a stop next to the fence. The door flew open. Volkov was behind the wheel. "Get in!" Emily shoved Ryan into the back seat and dove in after him. Volkov floored it before her door was even closed, tires screeching as they tore away from the compound. Gunfire chased them, rounds slamming into the trunk, shattering the rear window. Emily pushed Ryan down and covered him, glass raining over them. Volkov swerved hard, cutting across an empty lot, then onto a side road. The trucks followed, but Volkov knew the area. He took corners too fast, threading through narrow alleys and side streets, putting distance between them. After 5 minutes, the headlights behind them disappeared. Volkov slowed, his eyes on the rearview mirror. "You are clear." Emily sat up slowly, breathing hard. Ryan was staring at her, his face a mix of shock and something else. Fear, maybe, or awe. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Emily met his eyes. "I'll explain, but not yet. Those guys were going to kill me." "I know. Because of you." Emily's chest tightened. "Yes." Ryan looked away, his jaw working. "I need to know what you're involved in." "You will, I promise, but right now we need to get somewhere safe." Volkov glanced back at them. "There is no safe, not anymore. The people who took him are connected to Harrington. They will not stop." Emily pulled out the laptop. "Then we end it. Tonight." Volkov's eyes narrowed. "How?" Emily opened the laptop and pulled up the video files. "We go public. Release everything, every email, every recording, every piece of evidence Reeves collected." Ryan leaned forward. "Who's Harrington?" Emily turned to him. "A senator. The one who ordered the hit on a kid 12 years ago to cover up his own corruption. The same one who just tried to kill us to keep it quiet." Ryan's face went pale. "And you have proof?" "Yes." "Then why haven't you released it already?" Emily's voice was quiet. "Because the second I do, I become a target for the rest of my life. So do you." Ryan stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached over and took the laptop from her hands. "Then let's make sure it's worth it." He opened the file directory and started uploading. Every file, every document, straight to a public server, no encryption, no delays. Emily grabbed his wrist. "Ryan, wait." "No, you've been carrying this alone for too long. Let me help." Emily's throat closed up. She wanted to argue, wanted to protect him. But the look in his eyes told her he wasn't a kid anymore. He was a man, and he'd made his choice. She let go. Ryan finished the upload and hit send. The files scattered across the internet, duplicating, spreading, unstoppable. Within minutes, news alerts started pinging, major outlets picking up the story, social media exploding, the video of Basara's confession going viral. Volkov watched the chaos unfold on his phone, his expression unreadable. "It is done." Emily leaned back against the seat, exhausted. "Yeah." Ryan looked at her. "What happens now?" Before Emily could answer, her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. She answered. Admiral Lawson's voice came through, tight and controlled. "Lieutenant, what have you done?" "What I had to." "You just declared war on one of the most powerful men in Washington." "He declared war on me first." Lawson was quiet for a moment. "Harrington's people are already scrambling, denying everything, calling it a hoax. It's not a hoax and you know it. Knowing it and proving it are two different things. The proof is out there now. Let the world decide. Lawson exhaled. You need to come in. Officially. Let us protect you. Your people just tried to kill me. That wasn't us. That was Harrington's private contractors. We've been trying to find you to bring you in safely. Emily didn't believe him, but she was too tired to argue. I'll think about it. She hung up. Volkov turned onto a highway, heading north. Where do you want to go? Emily looked at Ryan. He looked back at her, waiting. She thought about the house, the hospital, the life she'd built in silence and obscurity. It was gone now, all of it, but maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Somewhere public, she said finally. Somewhere they can't touch us without the whole world watching. Volkov nodded. I know a place. 3 hours later, they walked into the lobby of the Washington Herald, one of the oldest newspapers in the country. Emily had called ahead, told them who she was, told them she had a story. The editor-in-chief met them at the door, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She looked at Emily, then at Ryan, then at Volkov. You're the White Angel. Emily nodded. The editor gestured toward a conference room. Let's talk. They sat down, and Emily told her everything. The mission, the cover-up, Harrington, Basara, Volkov, all of it. The editor listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression unreadable. When Emily finished, the woman sat back and folded her hands. This is the biggest story of the decade, maybe the century. I know. It's also going to destroy your life. It already has. The editor looked at Ryan. What about you? Ryan's voice was steady. I'm with her. The editor smiled faintly. You're your mother's son. She stood up. We'll run it. Front page, tomorrow morning. But you need to be prepared for what comes next. Harrington will come after you with everything he has, legal, political, personal. Let him try. The editor nodded. Get some rest. You're going to need it. Emily, Ryan, and Volkov left the building and walked to a hotel 3 blocks away. The editor had arranged rooms under false names, paid in cash. Emily checked in, took Ryan upstairs, and locked the door behind them. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, finally letting exhaustion show. His hands were shaking slightly. Emily sat down next to him. You did good tonight. Ryan looked at her. I was terrified. So was I. You didn't look it. Emily's voice was soft. That's the job, looking calm when everything's falling apart. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, Why didn't you ever tell me about what you did overseas? Emily stared at the floor. Because I didn't want you to see me that way, as someone who killed people, who made impossible choices. I wanted you to see me as your mom, not as a soldier. I can see you as both. Emily looked at him, her eyes wet. I know that now. Ryan leaned against her shoulder and they sat there in silence, both too tired to say anything else. A knock at the door made them both tense. Emily stood, hand moving toward her weapon, but Volkov's voice came through. It's me! She opened the door. Volkov stepped inside holding a laptop. You need to see this. He set it on the table and pulled up a news site. The homepage was dominated by a single headline. Senator Harrington implicated in military cover-up. Below it was Basara's video, already racked up millions of views. Beneath that, article after article, breaking down the evidence, the timeline, the connections. Ryan leaned over Emily's shoulder. It's everywhere. Volkov scrolled through the feed. Every major outlet, international coverage. They cannot bury this. Emily's phone buzzed. Another call from Lawson. She answered. Have you seen the news? Hard to miss. Harrington just resigned, effective immediately. The DOJ is opening a criminal investigation. FBI's raiding his offices as we speak. Emily closed her eyes. Good. You did it, Lieutenant. You brought him down. We brought him down. Reeves started it. I just finished it. How is Reeves? Emily had called the hospital earlier. Stable. They think he'll make it. That's something. Lawson paused. The Pentagon wants to restore your full honors, publicly. They're talking about a ceremony. Medal of Honor consideration. Emily's jaw tightened. I don't want a ceremony. You earned it. I earned the right to be left alone. Lawson sighed. Fair enough, but the offer stands when you're ready. He hung up. Ryan looked at her. You should take it. Why? Because people need to know who you are, not just what you did. Emily looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. They know enough. Volkov's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Then his expression darkened. We have a problem. Emily turned. What? He handed her the phone, a message from an encrypted number. Harrington was a pawn. The real players are still in the game. This isn't over. Emily's stomach dropped. She looked at Volkov. Who sent this? I do not know, but they are right. Harrington had backers, people with more money and power than him, people who will not accept exposure. Ryan stood up. So what do we do? Emily set the phone down. We keep going. We find out who's behind him, and we expose them too. Volkov shook his head. That is not a fight you can win. Maybe not, but I'm not backing down. You will be killed. Then I'll die doing the right thing. Ryan's voice cut in, firm. She's not doing it alone. Emily turned to him. Ryan, I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. You can't protect me from everything, and I'm not letting you do this by yourself. Emily wanted to argue, but the steel in his voice stopped her. He meant it. Volkov watched them both, then exhaled. You are both insane. Emily managed a small smile. Probably. But if you are going to do this, you will need help. Real help, not just me. Who do you have in mind? Volkov pulled out his phone and sent a message. A minute later, a reply came through. He read it, then looked at Emily. I have contacts. People who have been burned by the same system. Former operators, journalists, hackers. They will help. For a price. What price? The same thing you want. Truth, justice, accountability. Emily nodded. Set it up. Volkov made a call, speaking in rapid Russian. When he finished, he looked at Emily. They will meet us tomorrow. New York. We leave at dawn. Emily agreed. She needed sleep, needed to think, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She walked to the window and looked out at the city, lights stretching in every direction, millions of people going about their lives, unaware of what had just happened, unaware that the walls were starting to crack. Ryan came up beside her. You think we can really do this? I don't know, but we have to try. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, what if we lose? Emily looked at him. Then at least we went down fighting. Odd. By morning, the story had grown. Harrington's resignation was front-page news worldwide. Protests were already forming outside his estate. Calls for investigations into the entire Armed Services Committee. Social media was a wildfire of outrage and demands for accountability. Emily watched it all from the hotel room, coffee in hand, feeling strangely detached. She'd spent 12 years trying to forget Kandahar, and now it was all anyone was talking about. Her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. A woman's voice. Older. Tired. Is this Lieutenant Carter? Who's asking? My name is Sarah Basara. Farid was my nephew. Emily's breath caught. I'm sorry for your loss. Don't be. You didn't kill him, but you gave him a voice. You made sure the world knows what happened to him. I wanted to thank you. Emily's throat tightened. I just did what needed to be done. You did more than that. You risked everything. For a boy you never met. That takes courage. Emily didn't know what to say. Sarah continued, My family wants to help. We have resources, connections. If you're going after the people who ordered Farid's death, we want to support you. That's not necessary. It is to us, please. Let us help. Emily hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Sarah gave her a contact number and hung up. Ryan looked at her. Who was that? Basara's family. They want to help. Volkov raised an eyebrow. You are building an army, Lieutenant. Emily set the phone down. Not an army, just people who are tired of being lied to. At noon, they checked out of the hotel and drove to New York. Volkov had arranged a meeting at a warehouse in Brooklyn, neutral ground. Emily didn't like it, but she didn't have better options. They arrived just before sunset. The warehouse was old, brick walls covered in fading paint, windows boarded up. Volkov led them inside. 6 people were waiting. Emily recognized one of them immediately. Former Marine Corps colonel, dishonorably discharged for refusing an illegal order. Another was a journalist Emily had read. Investigative reporter who'd exposed black site torture programs. The others she didn't know, but they all had the same look. Hard, scarred, angry. The colonel stepped forward. "Lieutenant Carter, I've been following your story." Emily nodded. "Colonel Hayes." "Just Hayes now. They took the rank when they threw me out." He gestured to the others. "We're here because we've all been burned by the same people. We know what it's like to tell the truth and get crucified for it." The journalist spoke up, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes. "Harrington's resignation is just the beginning. We've been digging into his financials. He's got connections to 3 defense contractors, 2 oil companies, and a private military firm. All of them have vested interests in keeping certain operations quiet." Emily's pulse quickened. "You have proof?" "We're working on it, but we need access to classified databases, and that's where you come in." Emily frowned. "I don't have that kind of access anymore." "But Reeves does, or did. If he survives, he can get us in." Emily pulled out her phone and called the hospital. Reeves had been transferred to a secure wing, military guard outside his door. She asked to be connected. A nurse answered, then put Reeves on. His voice was weak but clear. "Emily? Marcus? How are you holding up?" "Still breathing. That's something." "I need your help. Your access codes to the JSOC database." Reeves was quiet for a moment. "That's a court-martial if they catch you." "They're already trying to kill me. What's one more charge?" Reeves laughed, then coughed. "Fair point. I'll send you the codes. But Emily, be careful. The people behind Harrington are not going to go quietly." "I know." He hung up. 2 minutes later, the codes came through. Emily handed them to the journalist, who immediately got to work on a laptop. The screen filled with files, directories, classified mission reports. Emily watched over her shoulder as the journalist worked, pulling up documents, cross-referencing names and dates. After 20 minutes, she stopped. "I found something." Emily leaned in. On the screen was a memo, dated 3 weeks before the Kandahar mission. Subject line, Operation Clean Slate. The journalist read aloud. "Objective: eliminate high-value witness before testimony. Asset: Fareed Basara. Method: stage insurgent execution. Plausible deniability maintained." Emily's hands clenched. Who authorized it? The journalist scrolled down. At the bottom of the memo was a signature. Not Harrington's. Someone higher. Deputy Secretary of Defense, Lawrence Kincaid. Emily's vision blurred. Kincaid was still in office, still wielding power, still untouchable. Until now. The journalist looked at her. "We leak this. Kincaid goes down. But he's got friends. This will get ugly." Emily's voice was steady. "Let it." The journalist nodded and started uploading the files to a secure server. Within minutes, they'd be out in the world, impossible to suppress. Ryan stepped up beside Emily. "You're really doing this?" "Yeah." "No turning back?" "No." He took her hand. "Then let's finish it." The files went live at midnight. By morning, Kincaid's name was everywhere. Cable news, social media, international outlets. The memo was dissected, analyzed, confirmed by multiple sources. Kincaid issued a denial, called it a forgery, but the damage was done. By noon, protesters surrounded the Pentagon. By evening, Congress announced a special investigation. By the next morning, Kincaid resigned. Emily watched it all from a safe house in upstate New York, exhausted but awake. Ryan sat next to her, monitoring the news. Volkov stood by the window, ever watchful. Her phone rang. Admiral Lawson. "You did it again." Emily's voice was flat. "It's not over." Kincaid was the last link in the chain. Harrington's down, Kincaid's down, you got them all. There's always someone else. Lawson was quiet for a moment. Maybe. But you've done enough. Come in, Emily. Let us handle the rest. Emily looked at Ryan, then at Volkov. I'll think about it. She hung up. Ryan looked at her. Are you going in? Emily stared at the screen, at the headlines, at the faces of the men she'd brought down. Then she thought about the message from earlier. The real players are still in the game. Someone was still out there, someone who thought they could outlast her. They were wrong. Emily stood up, her voice firm. No, we keep digging until there's no one left to hide. Volkov smiled faintly. You are going to make a lot of enemies. I already have. Ryan stood beside her. Then let's make sure they regret it. Emily's phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown sender. She opened it. A single photo. A man in a private office, expensive suit, gray hair. She didn't recognize him, but the caption underneath made her blood run cold. You took down my pawns. Congratulations. Now let's see if you can handle the king. Below it, a name. Victor Ashford, CEO, Sentinel Global Defense. Emily stared at the screen, her pulse pounding. Ashford wasn't military, wasn't government. He was private sector. The man who sold weapons to both sides. The man who profited from every conflict, every cover-up, every body buried in the sand. And he just declared war. Emily stared at the photo, her jaw tight. Victor Ashford. She'd heard the name before, whispered in briefing rooms, redacted from after-action reports. Sentinel Global Defense supplied half the private military contractors in the Middle East. If there was a war, Ashford was selling guns to both sides. If there was a cover-up, his lawyers were writing the NDAs. And now he was coming for her. Ryan leaned over her shoulder, reading the message. Who is he? The man who profits from everything we just exposed. Emily's voice was cold. Harrington and Kincaid were his puppets. He kept them in power because they kept the contracts flowing. Volkov stepped closer, studying the photo. Ashford is not a politician. He does not resign. He does not apologize. He destroys. Emily looked up. Then we destroy him first. The journalist, still at her laptop, pulled up a new window. Ashford's untouchable through normal channels. His companies incorporated in 3 countries. Shell companies layered 6 deep. Every politician in Washington has taken his money at some point. Hayes, the former colonel, crossed his arms. So we can't go through the system. We go around it. Emily nodded. We hit him where it hurts. His reputation, his business, his control. The journalist's fingers flew across the keyboard. I can start digging into Sentinel's financials, follow the money. But we'll need access to international banking records. That's not easy. Volkov pulled out his phone. I know someone who can help with that. He stepped away, speaking in low Russian. Emily turned to Ryan. You should sit this one out. No. Ryan, this isn't... I'm staying. His voice was firm. You taught me to finish what I start, so let's finish it. Emily wanted to argue, but she saw the set of his shoulders, the determination in his eyes. He wasn't leaving, and maybe that was okay. Maybe he needed to see this through as much as she did. She nodded. Okay, but you follow my lead. No hero moves. Deal. Volkov returned, pocketing his phone. I have a contact in Geneva, former intelligence analyst. She can access the Swiss banking databases, but she wants something in return. What? Immunity. She has warrants in 3 countries. If we can get those cleared, she will help. Emily looked at the journalist. Can you make that happen? I know people at the State Department. Off-the-record types. Give me an hour. She got to work. Emily paced the warehouse, her mind racing. Ashford was smart. He wouldn't make the same mistakes as Harrington or Kincaid. He'd be ready for her, which meant she needed to be 3 steps ahead. Her phone buzzed. A call from Admiral Lawson. She answered. Lieutenant, I just got word that you're going after Victor Ashford. Emily kept her voice steady. How'd you know? Because half the intelligence community is watching you, and they're placing bets on whether you'll survive the week. That's comforting. Emily, listen to me. Ashford isn't like the others. He has private armies. He has politicians in his pocket. He has the resources to make you disappear and call it an accident. I'm not backing down. Lawson sighed. I didn't think you would, but I'm calling to tell you something you need to hear. Ashford's already moving. He's filing lawsuits, defamation, harassment. He's got a PR team spinning the story, saying you're a disgraced soldier with a vendetta. Emily's grip tightened on the phone. Let him spin. The truth will come out. Not if he buries you first. He's also putting pressure on the Pentagon, calling in favors, trying to get you arrested. For what? Theft of classified materials. Unauthorized release of state secrets. They're building a case to lock you up for 20 years. Emily's stomach dropped. They can, and they will. Unless you have something on Ashford that's airtight, something he can't deny or spin. Emily looked across the warehouse at the journalist, still working. We're close. Close isn't good enough. You need a kill shot, and you need it fast. He hung up. Emily walked over to the journalist. How long? My contact at State just got back to me. Immunity's approved. Volkov's analyst is green-lit. Volkov's phone buzzed. He read the message, then looked at Emily. She is sending files now. The journalist's laptop pinged. A folder appeared, packed with documents. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, payments to shell companies. And names, dozens of names. Emily leaned in, scanning the list. Senators, generals, foreign officials, all receiving payments from Sentinel Global Defense. The journalist's eyes widened. This is it. This is the web. Ashford's been buying influence for decades. Hayes stepped closer. If we release this, half of Washington goes down. Emily's jaw tightened. Good. You understand what that means? The blowback will be massive. They'll come after you with everything. They're already coming after me. The journalist looked up. We need to verify these before we publish. One mistake, and Ashford's lawyers will shred us. Emily pulled out her phone and called Sarah Basara. The woman answered immediately. Ms. Carter, what do you need? Your family's connected to international finance, right? Yes. Oil. Banking. Why? I need someone who can verify financial records. Fast. Sarah didn't hesitate. Send them to me. I'll have our accountants look at them within the hour. Emily forwarded the files. Then she called Reeves. He answered on the second ring, his voice stronger than before. Emily, I heard you're going after Ashford. You heard right. I need your help. Can you cross-reference these names with classified mission logs? See who was giving orders during operations that benefited Sentinel. Already ahead of you. I've been pulling files since I woke up. I'll send you what I have. 20 minutes later, the pieces started coming together. Sarah's accountants confirmed the transfers were real. Reeves sent mission logs showing that Sentinel benefited from at least 15 different military operations, all authorized by officials on Ashford's payroll. The journalist compiled everything into a single document. This is ironclad. Bank records, mission logs, testimonies. Ashford orchestrated a decade-long scheme to profit from military conflicts he helped create. Emily stared at the screen. How do we release it? Everywhere, every outlet, every platform, all at once. He can't suppress it if it's already out there. No. Hayes nodded. Scorched earth. Emily looked at Ryan. He met her eyes and nodded. Do it. The journalist hit send. The document uploaded to a dozen servers simultaneously. News sites, WikiLeaks, independent journalists. Within seconds, it was spreading. Within minutes, it was trending. Within an hour, it was the only story anyone was talking about. Emily watched the chaos unfold on the screens around her. Breaking news alerts, live coverage. Ashford's face plastered across every channel. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ashford's voice came through, smooth and cold. Impressive, Lieutenant. You've caused quite the stir. You should resign while you still can. Resign? He laughed. I don't resign. I adapt. You think releasing a few documents will stop me? I've been doing this for 30 years. I have contingencies you can't even imagine. Then let's test them. You're a fool. You've made powerful enemies. And enemies have a way of disappearing. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He paused. But I'm a reasonable man. I'll make you an offer. Walk away. Stop digging. And I'll make sure you and your son live long, quiet lives. Emily's voice was ice. Go to hell. Ashford's tone shifted, darker now. You just signed your own death warrant. The line went dead. Ryan looked at her, his face pale. Mom, I know. Emily turned to Volkov. He's going to come after us, hard. We need to move. Volkov was already packing. I have a safe location, off-grid. No one will find us there. Hayes stepped forward. You're not running, not anymore. Ashford just declared war, so we fight back. Emily shook her head. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. You exposed the system that threw me away. That makes it my fight. He looked at the others. They all nodded. The journalist spoke up. Ashford's going to try to discredit the documents. We need to stay ahead of him, keep releasing information, keep the pressure on. Emily's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Basara. My family wants to go public. We're holding a press conference tomorrow. We'll testify about what Ashford did to Fareed. Will you stand with us? Emily's chest tightened. A public appearance. That made her a target, but it also made her visible. Harder to disappear. She typed back. Where? United Nations Plaza, noon. Emily looked at the group. Basara's family is going public tomorrow. They want me there. Volkov shook his head. That is suicide. Ashford will have men waiting. Probably. But if we don't show, he wins. He controls the narrative. Hayes nodded. She's right. We go public. We make it loud. Make it impossible for him to strike without the whole world watching. Ryan stepped forward. I'm going with you. No. Mom. I said no. You stay here. Stay safe. Ryan's voice rose. You don't get to protect me anymore. I'm done sitting on the sidelines while you risk everything. Emily grabbed his shoulders, her voice fierce. And I'm done watching people I love get hurt because of me. You stay. That's an order. Ryan's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He just turned and walked away. Emily felt the weight of it crushing her chest, but she didn't have time to process. She turned to the others. We leave at dawn, UN Plaza, full media presence. We make our stand there. The next morning, Emily stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her old service uniform. She'd pulled it from storage years ago, kept it in the back of her closet like a ghost she couldn't quite bury. Now she was wearing it again. The ribbons, the medals, the rank insignia. Lieutenant Emily Carter. White Angel. Ryan appeared in the doorway behind her. His face was tight, but he didn't say anything, just watched. Emily turned to face him. I need you to understand something. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I need you to promise me you'll keep going. Keep fighting. Don't let them bury the truth. Ryan's eyes were wet. You're coming back. I hope so, but promise me anyway. He stepped forward and pulled her into a fierce hug. I promise. Emily held him tight, memorizing the feel of it. Then she pulled back. I love you. I love you too. She walked out. Volkov was waiting by the car, along with Hayes and two others from the group. They drove into the city in silence, the weight of what was coming pressing down on all of them. UN Plaza was packed, news trucks, cameras, protesters holding signs demanding justice for Basara, security barriers keeping the crowds back. Emily stepped out of the car and the crowd erupted. Some were cheering, some were shouting. All of them had cameras pointed at her. Sarah Basara was waiting at the top of the steps, flanked by her family. She saw Emily and walked down to meet her. Thank you for coming. Emily nodded. Thank you for doing this. Sarah gestured toward the podium. We're ready when you are. They walked up together. The cameras followed. Emily could feel the weight of every eye on her, could feel the crosshairs. Sarah stepped up to the microphone first. Her voice was steady, strong. My name is Sarah Basara. 12 years ago, my nephew Fareed was murdered. Not by terrorists, not by insurgents, but by men in suits. Men who decided his life was worth less than their profits. Men who used soldiers like pawns to cover up their crimes. Today, we stand here to demand justice, not just for Fareed, but for every person who has been silenced, erased, or destroyed by a system that values power over people. The crowd roared. Sarah stepped back, and Emily stepped forward. The noise died down. Every camera locked onto her. Emily's voice was clear. My name is Emily Carter. Lieutenant, United States Navy Medical Corps. 12 years ago, I was part of a mission that I believed was about saving lives. I was wrong. That mission was about covering up a murder, and I've spent the last 12 years trying to forget it, but I can't. Because forgetting means letting the people responsible get away with it. And I won't do that. Not anymore. She pulled out a folder and held it up. This contains evidence linking Victor Ashford and Sentinel Global Defense to illegal arms deals, bribery, and conspiracy to commit murder. It shows that for decades, Ashford has been profiting from wars he helped create. It shows that he paid officials to authorize military operations that had no strategic value but massive financial benefit to his company. And it shows that he is willing to kill anyone who threatens to expose him. The crowd erupted again. Emily raised her voice over the noise. Victor Ashford thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he can outlast us, outspend us, outlive us. But he's wrong. Because we're not going away, we're not backing down, and we're not afraid. A commotion at the edge of the plaza. Security shouting. Emily saw movement in the crowd. Men in dark suits pushing through, hands reaching inside jackets. Volkov's voice crackled in her earpiece. Contact, 3 o'clock, armed. Emily's heart slammed. She stepped back from the podium, scanning the crowd. Hayes moved in front of her, weapon drawn. Police rushed forward, intercepting the men. Gunfire erupted. The plaza exploded into chaos, people screaming, running, diving for cover. Emily dropped behind the podium, pulling Sarah down with her. Hayes returned fire, covering them. Volkov appeared from the side, grabbing Emily's arm. Move, now! They ran, staying low, weaving through the panicked crowd. More gunfire, rounds tearing through the air. Emily could hear sirens in the distance, police and federal agents converging. They reached the car. Volkov shoved Emily inside and floored it, tires screeching. Behind them, the plaza was a war zone. Emily's phone buzzed, a call from Ryan. She answered, breathless. Mom, I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine. Stay where you are. Don't move. They tried to kill you. I know, but I'm okay. I promise. She hung up and looked at Volkov. Where are we going? Somewhere Ashford cannot reach. They drove for an hour, finally stopping at a small airfield outside the city. A private jet was waiting, engines already running. Volkov gestured toward it. Get on. Emily hesitated. Where's this going? Geneva. My contact has more files, enough to bury Ashford completely, but we need to move fast. Emily looked back toward the city, toward Ryan, toward everything she was leaving behind. Then she climbed onto the plane. Geneva was cold and gray when they landed just after midnight. They went straight to a secure location, an apartment overlooking the lake. Volkov's contact was already there, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s named Katya. She handed Emily a flash drive. Everything Ashford has hidden for the past 20 years, offshore accounts, weapon shipments, bribes, assassinations, all of it. Emily plugged it into a laptop. The files were overwhelming, thousands of documents, evidence of crimes spanning continents. Katya leaned over her shoulder. If you release this, Ashford goes to prison. So do half his associates. But you need to be smart. Release it too soon, and his lawyers will tie it up in court for years. You need leverage. Emily looked up. What kind of leverage? His board of directors. They don't know the full extent of his crimes. If they find out, they'll turn on him to save themselves. Sentinel's stock is already dropping. Investors are panicking. You get the board on your side, Ashford loses his power base. Emily nodded. How do I reach them? There's a shareholders meeting in 3 days. Zurich, private. Invitation only. Katya smiled. But I can get you in. Emily spent the next 2 days preparing. She studied every document on the drive, memorized names, dates, transactions. She knew Ashford would be there, knew he'd have security, but she also knew that in a room full of investors watching their fortunes evaporate, the truth would hit harder than any bullet. Hayes called from New York. The fallout from the plaza is massive. Ashford's denying involvement, but witnesses ID'd his contractors. FBI's opened an investigation. Good. Keep the pressure on. Emily, you need to be careful. He's cornered now. That makes him more dangerous. I know. She hung up and looked at Volkov. You don't have to come with me to Zurich.
Yes, I do. This isn't your fight. Volkov's eyes were hard. You gave Basara a voice. You gave all of us a voice. That makes it my fight.
3 days later, Emily walked into the Sentinel Global Defense shareholders meeting wearing a borrowed business suit and a fake ID. She'd dyed her hair dark, wore glasses, blended into the crowd of nervous investors filling the conference room. The boardroom was sleek and modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Zurich. Ashford sat at the head of the table, flanked by lawyers, looking calm despite the chaos swirling around his company. He started the meeting with reassurances. Recent allegations are baseless. We're cooperating fully with authorities. Our legal team is confident these charges will be dismissed. Murmurs around the room. Emily stayed quiet, waiting. One of the board members spoke up. Mr. Ashford, our stock has dropped 40% in 3 days. Clients are pulling contracts. We need more than reassurances. Ashford's jaw tightened. We're weathering a coordinated attack by a disgraced soldier with a grudge. Once the facts come out, Emily stood up. Ashford stopped mid-sentence. His eyes locked onto her, and for a split second she saw recognition. Fear. You, he said, his voice low. Emily pulled off her glasses. Me. Security moved toward her, but she was faster. She pulled out a remote and hit play. The screens around the room lit up. Bank transfers, emails, video testimony from Reeves, audio recordings of Ashford ordering hits, documents showing payments to officials who authorized strikes that benefited Sentinel. The room exploded, board members shouting, Ashford on his feet screaming for security to shut it down. But the files were already uploading to the cloud, streaming live to news outlets around the world. Emily's voice cut through the chaos. You told me I signed my death warrant, but you signed yours the moment you decided profit mattered more than lives. Ashford's face was purple with rage. You have no idea what you've done. The people I work with are going down with you. Security grabbed her arms, but the damage was done. The board members were staring at the screens, at the evidence of everything Ashford had hidden from them. One of them stood, his face pale. Motion to remove Victor Ashford as CEO, effective immediately. Another board member seconded. The vote was unanimous. Ashford's world collapsed in less than 5 minutes. Swiss federal police entered the room, flanked by Interpol agents. They read Ashford his rights in 3 languages. He didn't resist, just stared at Emily with pure hatred as they led him away in handcuffs. The man who'd thought he was untouchable, brought down in the same kind of boardroom where he'd made his fortune. Emily walked out, her hands shaking but her head high. Volkov was waiting in the hallway. It is done. Emily nodded. Yeah. But she knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The flight back to the United States felt longer than it should have. Emily stared out the window, watching clouds drift past, her mind numb from exhaustion. When they landed, Ryan was waiting at the airport. He spotted her through the crowd and ran. Emily met him halfway, and they collided in a hug that knocked the wind out of both of them. You did it, Ryan said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. We did it. They pulled apart, and Emily saw tears on his face. I thought I lost you. You didn't. You won't. Admiral Lawson was there too, along with a full military escort. He approached slowly, his expression unreadable. Lieutenant Carter. Emily straightened. Admiral? The Pentagon wants to see you, officially. Emily's stomach dropped. Am I under arrest? No. Lawson's face softened. You're being honored. 2 weeks later, Emily stood on the steps of the Capitol building in Washington, surrounded by cameras and reporters. The Senate had opened hearings into Sentinel Global Defense. Dozens of officials had already resigned or been arrested. The system was cracking wide open. Admiral Lawson stood beside her, along with Sarah Basara and the families of the other victims. Ryan was there too, in his dress uniform, standing tall. Reeves was there, still recovering but insisting on being present. Lawson stepped up to the microphone. Today, the United States Navy is proud to announce the full restoration of Lieutenant Emily Carter's honors. Her Silver Star, her Bronze Stars, and her Navy Cross, are hereby officially recognized. Additionally, she is being awarded the Medal of Honor for extraordinary valor in combat, unwavering commitment to justice, and service above self. The crowd erupted in applause. Emily stepped forward, and Lawson placed the medal around her neck. The weight of it settled against her chest, heavier than she expected. She looked out at the faces staring back at her. Some were crying, some were cheering. All of them saw her, not as a quiet nurse, not as someone to dismiss or ignore, as someone who mattered. Lawson handed her the microphone. Emily took a breath and spoke. "I don't feel like a hero. Heroes are the people who don't make it home. Heroes are the ones who give everything and ask for nothing. I'm just someone who refused to stay quiet when staying quiet meant letting good people be forgotten." But her voice strengthened. "For 12 years, I carried the weight of what happened in Kandahar. I thought if I stayed invisible, if I kept my head down, I could protect the people I loved. But I was wrong. Silence doesn't protect anyone. It just gives power to the people who abuse it." She looked directly at the cameras. "If you're watching this and you've been told to stay quiet, to accept injustice, to let the system win because fighting it is too hard, don't. Speak up, fight back. You're not alone, and you're stronger than they want you to believe." The applause was deafening. Emily stepped back and Sarah Basara stepped forward, hugging her tight. "Thank you for everything." Emily's voice was soft. "I'm sorry I couldn't save him." "You did. You gave him justice. You gave him a voice. That's everything." Ryan appeared beside her, his eyes red but proud. "That was incredible, Mom." Emily pulled him close. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yeah, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." The hearings lasted months. Ashford was extradited to the United States and faced trial for conspiracy, murder, fraud, and a dozen other charges. The evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. 11 senators resigned, 4 generals were court-martialed. Sentinel Global Defense collapsed, its assets seized and sold off. The money went to victims' families and veterans' organizations. The system didn't fix itself overnight, but it cracked. And through those cracks, light started to get in. Emily was offered positions at the Pentagon, the VA, consulting firms that wanted her name attached to their reform initiatives. She turned them all down. Instead, she took a job at a small veterans clinic in rural Virginia, counseling soldiers who'd been burned by the system, helping them find their way back, helping them understand that what happened to them wasn't their fault, that they deserved better. She bought a small house surrounded by trees, with a stream running through the backyard, and enough space for Ryan to visit whenever he wanted. She planted a garden, got a dog, learned how to sleep without nightmares waking her up every few hours. It took time, but slowly she started to feel like herself again. 1 year later, Emily stood in front of a classroom at a community college, teaching a course on military ethics and accountability. The students were a mix of veterans, activists, and kids who just wanted to understand how the system worked. She didn't sugarcoat anything, told them about Kandahar, about Basara, about Ashford and Harrington and all the people who'd thought they were above the law. And she told them about the people who'd fought back: Reeves, Volkov, Sarah, Ryan, Hayes, all of them. "The system doesn't change because powerful people suddenly grow a conscience," she said. "It changes because ordinary people refuse to accept it, because they stand up, even when it's terrifying, even when it costs them everything." A student raised her hand. "But what if you're not strong enough? What if you're just one person?" Emily smiled. "I'm just one person. So is everyone else who's ever made a difference. You don't need to be strong, you just need to be stubborn." The class laughed. After the session ended, Emily packed up her things and walked out to the parking lot. Ryan was waiting by her car, leaning against the hood. "Didn't know you were coming today." He grinned. "Wanted to surprise you." They drove to a small diner on the edge of town and ordered coffee, sat across from each other in a booth by the window, the same way they used to when he was a kid. Ryan looked at her, his expression serious.
I've been thinking about what you said, about speaking up, about not staying quiet.
Yeah? There's some stuff happening on my base, nothing like what you dealt with, but wrong, dangerous, and people are just looking the other way. Emily set down her coffee. What are you going to do? Ryan met her eyes. I'm going to report it, officially, even if it costs me. Emily's chest tightened with pride. Good. I'm scared. You should be, but do it anyway. He nodded. You taught me that. They sat in silence for a moment, and Emily realized that this, right here, was what it had all been for. Not the medals, not the headlines, not the vindication. This, her son, choosing to do the right thing even when it was hard, carrying forward what she'd started, making sure the fight didn't end with her. 2 years after Ashford's conviction, Emily received a letter from Volkov. He was living in Eastern Europe now, working with a nonprofit that exposed arms trafficking. He'd found a new purpose, a new fight. You changed my life, he wrote. I spent years hunting for revenge. You showed me there was something better. Thank you. Emily folded the letter and put it in a box with the others. Letters from veterans she'd helped, from families who'd found justice because of what she'd started, from students who'd gone on to become activists, journalists, lawyers fighting the same battles. She didn't need the recognition anymore, but she kept the letters because they reminded her that the work mattered, that she mattered. 5 years later, Ryan called her from overseas. He'd been promoted to lieutenant commander, was leading a team of his own now. I wanted to tell you something, he said. What's that? We just finished a mission, pulled a family out of a war zone, saved their lives. And the whole time I kept thinking about you, about what you did in Kandahar, about how you refused to leave anyone behind. Emily's throat tightened. You did good. I learned from the best. After they hung up, Emily sat on her porch, watching the sun set through the trees. The dog was asleep at her feet. The garden was in full bloom. The world was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, Emily Carter felt at peace. Not because the fight was over, but because she'd taught others how to keep fighting. Because she'd proven that one voice, no matter how quiet, could change everything. Because she'd walked into a room where no one saw her, and walked out a legend. And because when people asked who she was now, she didn't have to prove anything. She was Emily Carter, a nurse, a soldier, a mother. And that was enough. Years later, when Ryan had children of his own, he told them about their grandmother, not the medals or the headlines, not the speeches or the trials. He told them about the woman who showed up to his graduation in scrubs and got pushed to the back of the crowd, about how she could have walked away, could have stayed invisible, could have let the powerful stay powerful. But she didn't. He told them that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. That justice isn't something you wait for. It's something you fight for. That the quietest person in the room can be the one who changes the world. And when his daughter asked what happened to all the bad people, Ryan smiled. Grandma made sure they paid for what they did. Every single one of them. Is she still fighting? Ryan looked out the window at the old woman in the garden, gray-haired now but still sharp-eyed, still teaching, still refusing to stay quiet. Always, he said. She taught me that the fight never really ends, but that's okay, because neither do we. His daughter thought about that for a moment. Then she asked, Can I be like Grandma when I grow up? Ryan pulled her close. You already are. And somewhere, in a small house surrounded by trees, Emily Carter sat on her porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise. She'd spent her whole life being underestimated, dismissed, pushed aside. But she'd learned something those people never understood. You don't need permission to matter. You don't need recognition to make a difference. You just need to refuse to be silent when silence costs lives. The world tried to make her invisible. She made herself impossible to ignore. And she taught a generation to do the same. That was her legacy. Not the medals, not the trials, not the headlines, but the voices she'd given courage to speak, the lives she'd inspired to stand up, the system she'd forced to bend toward justice. Emily Carter took a sip of her coffee and smiled. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting it alone. And that made all the difference.